Good morning and welcome to Sunrise. This morning I'm Ayo Makindewa. As you can see, I'm home alone today. Well, other details about that will come, so thank you for asking. And yes, I have had my own cup of cocoa this morning. Thank you for asking as well. And I think we have something to cheer, right? On Thursday into Friday morning, news broke that ASUU has finally called off the strike. Guess what's instrumental? They went on that strike on the 14th of February this year, and they called off the strike on the 14th of October. So that makes it exactly 8 months of that strike. And well, that's that. Thankfully, there were a lot of interventions from all across, the place, just so that us could go back to the schools, the classrooms and everything. And of course, all of that has gone on. There are many people who indicate the intervention of the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Education, and of course, what the university, community considers an upset of sorts when the federal government had to take them to court, and the court order came and told them what they needed to do and all of that. So that's a little disturbing, but hey, that's water under the bridge. Those who will also indicate that no less impact was made by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who kept intervening and saying, look, we know that something has been done by governments to help call off the strike, but that is that. All of that is done with now. Now, there's something that the Speaker of the House of Representatives said, and that's the fact that these strikes must not happen again. Perhaps in line with that is when the president himself in the speech, budget speech, said 470 billion naira has been earmarked for some of the issues that the ASUU raised, the revitalization and of the universities and all of that. But there's something that the president also said, that the government alone cannot fund the university system. I mean, he also said, and I quote, in most countries, the cost of education is jointly shared between the government and the people, especially at the tertiary level. He said it is imperative, therefore, that we introduce a more sustainable model of funding tertiary education. That is the truth. But then don't also forget that the responsibility of government to educate the people is a constitutional duty. It is in the Constitution that as much as is possible for the governments, whether federal, state, or local, I'm not sure right now, the people should be educated as much as is possible, or maybe where the resources are available. Isn't that a caveat in a way for government to say, we won't be able to do it all the time, and when we are not able to do it, we should just leave it? I don't know. So maybe that's something that the National Assembly want to look at again and say, is this something that is compulsory? Is it the responsibility of the federal government, the responsibility of the state governments, or the responsibility of the local governments? That's one end of the divide. Another angle to that conversation is the gradation of education, of tertiary education. Most of the time, when we talk about tertiary education, we're only talking about the university system. Hey, what happened to polytechnics? What happened to technical education? Isn't that the reason why the 6334 system was set up? That if by the first 3 years of your secondary education, we know that you are not cut out for academics, you are cut out for technical stuff, you should be moved over. What has happened to that? How come we seem to give more prominence to academic education when the technical things are the ones that have helped countries like Asia, India, a number of other countries all over the world like that, to develop themselves, develop their human capital, and be able to do well for themselves? These are arguments that I think, are important for us to look at, because there are those who would say, we've had computer science students who never saw a computer before they left school. Anyway, maybe that's history now. I sincerely want to hope that that is history. Now, still talking about tertiary education. And a very disturbing, fact came out about a student in Unilag that was failed. Um, it is a Twitter user who is a student of ASUU herself says that they failed. She said, and I quote, "Unilag failed my friend." And she used a street language. They did him strong thing. And that, this fellow, had some occurrence, they thought it was food poisoning. They took him to the school clinic or something, a medical center, they call it. It took him there like maybe 2 or 3 times. And they alleged it was food poisoning. Found out later that it wasn't food poisoning because the pain wouldn't subside despite giving him drips upon injections and drugs and all those things. And it just wouldn't go under. And then after some time, they finally took him to, I think they took him to Luth or something. And when they got to this school, was it Luth or, FMC in Butemeta, they found out that, okay, he had appendicitis. So they finally took him to surgery after about, well, definitely not the same day. Took him to surgery, and the doctor told him that the appendix had burst about 8 hours before. So that all of the time that they were taking him back and forth, this guy was going to university classrooms to write his exams, and all of a sudden he wasn't able. He fainted right there. His course advisor was said to have joined in taking him to a clinic, and when that wouldn't seem to solve the problem, it took him to an ambulance. They were moving him from place to place until they finally got him to a place where he had this thing. All of that happened to this young man, and that was last year. Now, this is what is instructive. When this young lady said they failed her friend, was because the course advisor is an official of the university system. The head of department, or the department, by the way, is the Department of Faculty of Management Science or Business Administration, Department of Industrial Relations and Personnel Management at Unilag. So the HOD was aware. They took the school ambulance, the university ambulance, to take this young man or woman, this student, to the place where the surgery finally happened. And the school wrote off the medical fees. Guess what? At the end of the day, this young fellow was failed by the school. The results showed failed, not absent. This is something that the school was aware of. What is the implication? Now, this is the fear of the friend of this fellow who was ill. One of the concerns that was expressed was, what is now left in his GPA? They failed him, someone that was in the hospital. They told him to write letters. He wrote letters unendingly. They had him carry over all the ones he missed. Why? For something out of his control. What is now left in his GPA after carrying a whole semester over? That's one of the concerns. Now, she also said something. She said that, look, it was about time. I pray he gets justice, because if he wants to apply for jobs and scholarships in future, they'll be asking for a particular CGPA. Now, that is painful enough. Thankfully, the Unilag system has themselves responded to the allegations, so to speak. Unilag Nigeria, at Unilag Nigeria, is the school handle, says, the academic, mental, and physical well-being of our students is of topmost importance to us. Steps are already being taken to resolve this issue within the statutory requirements for results processing, exemption from examination, deferment of semesters, sessions, and so on. Please note that the Office of the DSA, Director of Academic Affairs and Counseling Unit, are readily available to help students navigate various issues. Our students, as well as their parents, guardians, are encouraged to approach any of these offices for the prompt resolution of issues. This attempt by parents and the students themselves started last year. This tweet that I'm reading to you If you go check it yourself, it was sent 7:03 a.m., 15th October 2022. Just today. Oh, wait, am I missing that? Today is 15, right? Yeah. I just needed to confirm. UNILAG just responded today after many months. September last year, this whole thing started. And ASUU was not on strike at the time. And this has happened to this young man. Now, many times when I say, let's decrypt government, in this case, let's decrypt UNILAG. Was it the school system that is doing this to this young fellow? Or was it just one person who was supposed to take action? Well, we understand that the student has been asked to write another letter. Good. Question: what happened to all the letters he or she wrote before now? Since last year, while ASUU was not on strike, what happened to all those letters? Whose head is going to roll? Who's going to be punished for that? How are we going to ensure that this doesn't happen to other students? And if you check that Twitter thread, you'll find out that it's not just something that's happened at UNILAG, it's happened at so many other universities all across the country. So you want to ask yourself, why would students have confidence in the university system if they are not confident that their personal lives are valued by the school that is supposed to help them build a better Nigeria? Ponder on that, and let's take a look at what we have lined up for you today. Oh, incidentally, the first item, ASUU resumes the task ahead. So all of that, that's the first thing we're going to be looking at. And the second will be a focus on disease surveillance and control, some activities of the NCDC. We understand that a number of things are happening in various other parts of the world now. We'll deal with that. And then there's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's October. What's the essence of that pink color? That and a number of other things. And then Jan's company program competition. Jan is Junior Achievement Nigeria. You'll find out more about that later on. On Lifestyle today, we want to look at food allergies and intolerances. What are those? Do you suddenly have certain reactions to some things? Even water? I don't know if that's a thing, but we'll find out about that later on. Our artist of the week is also lined up for today, and we'll wrap up Sunrise this morning. Until that time, let's begin with this one, and right after we'll be back to take on the first issue for the day. Grab your cup and let's have some fun. We'll be right back. People, no north and south, good versus evil, only when there's love can there be no... So that's where we begin Sunrise this beautiful Saturday morning, 15th of October. ASUU resumes. What's the task ahead? Of course, it's not news to you that the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, suspended its 8-month strike on October 14. Well, it was called to compel the federal government to take some actions and do some things to help improve the university system. All of that, of course, is something that we all understand, but what are the tasks ahead? It's been 8 months, and this is not the first time ASUU has gone on strike. It's been on for something in the region of, what, 30 years now? Repeating the same issue over and over again. Let's have a conversation around this with Mr. John Oloyede, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We also have Mr. Kayode. Oh, is that Doctor or Professor? Kayode Isuola, who is a research associate, a professor of political science, UNILAG. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We shouldn't take away that prof part of it because you paid for it.
What does it matter?
It does matter. You worked for it. And of course, we have the new president of the National Association of Nigerian Students, Umar Barambu, joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Okay, but let's begin with you, Mr. Isuola. So, do you think, I mean, this has been on for a while. First of all, let me take you up on that issue, if you don't mind, you know, that we raised of the UNILAG student that was, I don't know, is that what they call rusticated? Or the student was failed, according to the co-student. What do you make of it? I usually like to decrypt institutions. It's all reduced to one person's action at any given time.
Well, I don't have the facts of the matter. I was listening partially to your analysis on the television. That wasn't loud enough for me, so I couldn't get the details. But all I can say is that the university has a system. UNILAG has a very strong system that ensures that no student is short paid. I know so. I do not only teach and work and do research in UNILAG, I schooled there. First degree, second degree, doctoral, until as I speak. So a lot of things could have gone wrong. I'll advise that you speak directly to the spokesperson of the university, and then you get facts and figures that I may not have as I sit.
No, I'm not even going to, I'm not putting you on the spot for that. I'm just asking you because, I mean, you're from there. The reason I ask, because when you say, you know, there is a system, what's the system for a student who fell ill while writing exams in school under the supervision of the course advisor and the HOD?
Well, the much I know is that you must officially report to the university that you are ill, and that report must be processed. It is not just to the table of the course advisor or the HOD. It must get to certain levels of administration.
The question is, they were there when it happened.
Yeah.
They were there. This fellow couldn't have been able to write any letter. They were there. The HOD was there. The course advisor was there. I would have expected that maybe they would do a report and say this happened to a student.
So, you see, they were there. It's different from you are writing. I'm not a lawyer, but a lawyer will speak. It has to be formal. The university doesn't operate on I was there.
Yeah.
It has to be formal somehow, some way. This is not defending negligence on somebody's part if this is established. But I tell you, there's a system that is strong and well established that ensures that no student is short paid. I'm a product of that system. I think you should listen to the
we'll wait before the school to also know. But, you know, speaking to the ASUU issue, do you feel ASUU is, do you feel validated as a lecturer that, okay, the reason for which we went on strike has been, you know, significantly addressed?
Thank you very much. It's rather a shame of a nation that we allowed our universities to be shut for 8 months. What was ASUU asking for? Revitalization of the universities owned by the federal government and the state government. Submission of the reports of the visitation panel to the universities owned by the federal government. Removal of IPPIS that has been globally notoriously registered as being fraudulent and corruption ridden. Revitalization of the university. Payment of earned allowances, not just allowances, they have been earned, some as far back as 2005 or 2009. And then finally, human resources must be encouraged so that there will be motivation within the system. If these are all the issues on ground for ASUU, today the struggle went and we're where we are. I'm not, to go back to your question, straight to point, I don't think I feel 100% fulfilled. Because what we got could have been much more. 1, 2, we didn't need 8 months of time wasting of the intellectual bugs of the nation, of the world, to arrive at this. We also don't need to starve our lecturers and their families, including their aged parents, to arrive at this. It is sad. It's a thing of mixed feeling. I don't want to shed tears here, but let's hope never again should and will Nigeria experienced this kind of thing in history of the country?
Oh, well, I think I'll take it from where Professor Isuola ended. I'll pick his words, the shame of a nation. For me, I'm not in the academic world, but my conclusion is nothing has been gained in 8 months. Nothing has been gained. ASUU had an 8-point demand from inception. These are not demands that started 8 months ago. I think I read somewhere that in about 23 years, there have been 16 strike actions at the instance of ASUU in respect of the same heads of claim. And now, what was the reason given by the leadership of ASUU for calling off the strike? It says, well, due to the intervention of particularly the head of the lower house of assembly, Mr. Agbajabi Amila, the intervention of notable Nigerians, the appeal of the respected Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we're calling off this strike. We have not achieved most of the things we asked for. But because of the intervention, we'll call it off, hoping that the demands will be met. Now, we're in election season. We have this penchant for sweeping under the carpet our big problems until the elections are over to be inherited by the incoming government. And that is what we have done. Again, an escape route so that the election, a lot of things are happening. People are being freed from jail, compromises are being made, politicians are doing their usual things. Oh, ASUU must go. So that when they get to the campaign time, they go, oh, we solved the ASUU problem. It is not that the problem, it's not ASUU's problem. It's like Professor Isiola said, what they were asking for. Very simple things. Proliferation of universities. You keep on issuing, the existing universities are not well funded. And you keep on.
One of the issues that one might want to look at in that regard is, are you sympathetic to the claims that the federal government has that, look, the country doesn't have so much resources anymore to meet some of these demands of ASUU?
Well, that vanishes in the face of the fact that we're borrowing money, we're spending money, and we see the political class throwing money around. foreign currency. It's not speculative. We see it. The flamboyance.
The politicians' money is not the federal government's money.
Where did the money come from? Do they print money?
It's not the federal government's money, unless someone will come out and say, I saw them taking from the till. But one other issue that we want to look at, from your own perspective, we'll go to Mr. Barambu shortly. One of the issues that I'd like to also look at is the fact that, look, at the end of the day, the issues that are being talked about, as you said, have not really been significantly addressed.
No.
The tasks ahead are there for ASUU, are there for the students, are there for the university systems themselves.
Yes.
What progress do you see being made by any of these, body heads?
Well, let me just clear one point. When you say the monies we see all around us, they are not monies belonging to politicians, do not belong to the federal government. You have a situation where an assemblyman, a member of the political class, earns 45 million, I think, in a month. And a professor who had dedicated his life, before you become a professor in the academic world, you probably will spend like 20, 30 years. Earns 450,000. How does it make one feel? So I'll leave that. But now, talking about, look, going forward, what is in this for the different parties involved in the matter? Well, I suppose the students should be well, they are going back to school. The student leadership, when we were in school, I attended IFE. We never suffered fools. Every time, yes, we were always coming home, but we were always getting things. Pushing things forward. I think student unionism should go back to what it used to be. Because student union leaders should stop fraternizing with politicians. I'm not saying they cannot negotiate, they cannot discuss, but then there should be that boundary beyond which you do not go, you do not compromise. Student leadership, I'm happy the leader is with us this morning. I think they should take it. It's not a fight for lecturers. Because most of the things the lecturers are asking for, they are for the benefit of the students. I was joking with my daughter yesterday. I told her that we were discussing something about science. And I'm a lawyer, and she probably did something. I said, you see, I'm a very smart lawyer. I know science and all that. And she said, yeah, but I am a science student in Unilag. And I said, which Unilag? You use kerosene stove in your labs instead of Bunsen burner. Is that how you know Bunsen burner? I said, I used Bunsen burner in secondary school. Many universities don't have that now in their laboratories. So the student union leadership, they have a lot to do. ASUU, well, they've tried. I sympathize with them. Many of them are stuck. They've never done anything. I mean, the lecturers, they don't know anything else to do other than to teach. They don't earn money from other sources. But they are fighting to protect a territory. They are fighting to make it, they say Unilag is the best in Nigeria. That's what we're saying then. And is among the 401 to 500 in the world. It's a shame. And then the Nigerian leadership, the government. If you forsake the educational sector, ASUU says 26% of the budget should be given to education. It's not asking for too much.
Okay, let's bring in Mr. Barambo here now, the president of the National Association of Nigerian Students. You've listened to a little bit of all that we've been talking about, and you also heard Mr. Olojede's comment. Mr. Oloyede, beg your pardon's comment that we needed to go back to the way things were. First of all, let me begin with you by asking, what's your take on the resolution so far with ASUU, between ASUU and the federal government? Are you comfortable that indeed, there is light at the end of the tunnel, or you have your reservations?
Okay, good morning. Well, like you said, definitely I have my reservations. But before I answer that question, I just want to correct our lecturer, that's the legal man. You see, there are a lot of things that we at the student level need to inform the public. For example, now, you are talking about us joining hands to contribute our own quota towards solving this issue. But unfortunately, the student leadership doesn't know the actual problem between the ASUU and the federal government. Talking about the cause of the strike. Now, you made mention of 8 points. Immediately we come on board, we started reaching out, both the government, the ASUU, and of course all the stakeholders that are involved. Unfortunately, we personally requested that the student leadership should be carried along in that negotiation, not to negotiate, but to observe the negotiation process so that we will know where the problem is coming from. Today, if you approach government, they will tell you that, okay, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do this, we have to do that. We are going to do this, we are going to do that. If they do this, they do that. If you approach ASUU, they will tell you nothing has been done. But we said, please, let us be in there as observers so that we will know at the end of the day, the fault is coming from which side. The Minister of Labor, Chris Ngige, accepted that. But the ASUU president said, no, it is not in their tradition to invite anybody in their negotiation process between them and the federal government. And we say, Prof, it's not about tradition or constitution or anything, but we didn't say we are going to negotiate for you or intervene, but we will be there as observers. So that if you place 8 demand, the government promised to do the 8, we are say, okay, please, let's go back to class and continue. And they didn't do that. It is we that will say, no, you are at fault. But we didn't know that. So you have to carry us along for us to know the actual problem so that we can quickly come in on that aspect. Then secondly, that is the same thing I said to the ASUU president and the federal government, that shift grounds at least 8 months is not 8 days. Let's go back to the class. Then negotiation continues. But 8 months is not an easy one for us, the student. So to us, it's a welcome development that at least there is a small agreement between the ASUU and the federal government. And I like what you said, that they respected the president and the head of the lower chamber, Femi Bajamiamila. That is exactly what we did. Immediately I emerged as president of NANS. I sent a letter to the president that please quickly intervene. We equally do same to the speaker. They quickly intervene. And they have answered our call. They have intervened. And here we are.
Well, Mr. Barambu, one other question that comes naturally following what you just said now is, what's the assurance that it's not going to happen again tomorrow? We know that the president of ASUU has said any strike shouldn't last beyond 2 days or thereabout, or maybe even 2 weeks tops. That's what the president of ASUU had said. And we also find it on, in the news now, our Channels Television also covered that story, where the Speaker of the House of Representatives said strikes should never happen again. But if all the issues have not been satisfactorily addressed, and you just heard the example of Bunsen burner, which is supposed to be used, not being used. Instead, we have kerosene stoves in science laboratories being used. These are some of the issues that ASUU has been asking that government should revitalize the university system, but it hasn't significantly done that or satisfactorily done that. What if tomorrow ASUU says these issues have not been addressed, we're going to have to call out another strike?
Okay, now on the issue of that revitalization fee, according to our findings, the ASUU and FG once agreed that it should be a 200 billion naira yearly for the TED fund to take care of that. But this present administration, according to our findings, are giving 360 billion now, 150 billion on top of the 200 billion as agreed. And equally, in that same letter we sent to the president, we asked him to put in more. And while we are going through the 2023 budget, we saw 460 billion. We thank him for that. But on this note, I would like to call on the ASUU leadership that they should checkmate the vice chancellors, those that are doing the contract from the TED fund, and the stakeholders involved in this issue of a TED fund contract. It's not an easy one. For example, now, government will approve a contract of so billion to do this, to do that. But I'm not saying the vice chancellors used to corner the contract or something like that, but you will find out that people are not doing it up to standard. The ASUU should quickly start looking towards that by checkmating the contract. We are doing our own, but they have to do their own too, so that at least we will not be having all these problems. Because if we do that, it's going to help us. Now, issue of the Bunsen burner and the issue that you are talking about, it's not only that. There are a lot of things that are happening. But we have the TED fund, and they have the resources. It is their duty to do that.
Okay. Well, Prof, I'm sure you want to respond to some of the things that the young man said.
Thank you very much. Let me start from Barrister Oleyede. He understands the problem. He knows the reasons ASUU went on strike. Perhaps the information to be added is that when we agreed to call off the strike, there were certain undercurrents between the union and the leadership of the country. You could call it promise, as usual, but maybe promise that seems to show, I'm quoting the president of ASUU now, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Let us hope so, and then continue to pray for Nigeria and for the university system so that we can get things done. As they are now, things are terrible in the Nigerian university system. I mean, a student of mine was in my office yesterday, the intention was to break the good news that she just got a job. And then, what's your salary? 560,000 naira as a degree holder, first degree holder in political science. Now, a lecturer too in the university, somebody who has a PhD, does not earn 180,000 naira as they are. How do you run a nation like that? Are you not pushing the youngsters into criminality, into yahoo, into ritual money saga, even into terrorism? Because man, by nature, will survive first. Once you cannot survive on what you do, you look elsewhere. Let's hope that the undercurrents of the agreement, which will be made public later at the appropriate time by the national leadership of the union, let's hope those agreements will bring us good things. For NANS, I want to appreciate NANS and the role that the association played in this struggle. We can historicize it. In 1974, a few students of the University of Lagos were to be denied their examination because they could not pay. There was a semblance of protest, which led to riot. And as it happened in Unilag, it was happening in Ife, UI, Uniben, Nsukka, and there were about just 5 universities across the nation as at that time, really. And they were all owned by the federal government. The federal government ultimately decided to cancel the fees, and that snowballed into a policy, the decree that established the Nigerian Student Loan Board. That was not done by lecturer. That is a product of the students' struggle. So Nigerian students, many of whom are now lecturers and professors, have always been part of the development of the Nigerian educational system. So to that extent, I appreciate NANS. That being stated, the NANS president will not convince me very well if he says he does not really understand the problem. You don't have to sit in the negotiation table to know that your lecturers are not well paid. Their salaries are in the public space. You don't have to be in that meeting to know that your universities are not well equipped.
I don't think that's what he's saying. Yes. I think the issue he's saying is, look, even if they know the facts from experience as students themselves, it's not a whimsical idea that ASUU took to the federal government. They wrote them all out.
Yes.
Just as Mr. Olomide is saying that, look, I know that they have an 8-point agenda. Mr. Barambo has also mentioned that they are aware of some of these things. But what I think they are suggesting, and he's not the only one, even the previous president said that, look, we're not negotiating. We just want to be there. So that we can help you hold the federal government with whom you came into this agreement responsible and accountable.
Good. But the response of the national president is that it is not in the tradition of ASUU. Let us take what he has said as a suggestion to be considered in the future. But ASUU has a very strong tradition. Remember, you are dealing with a union of intellectuals. You don't change anything without going to the bottom. Remember when the strike was to be called off, the national president was accosted and said, okay, now that you have agreed, are you going to call off the strike? He didn't have the power. He needed to come back to each of the branches and democratically take into consideration people's opinion. before you go back to the national. So if this is going to happen, it's not a bad suggestion, I must confess. I was only saying that at now, you don't need to be at the meeting to know the realities of the problem. But we can suggest that going forward, future engagement should involve students. As a matter of fact, one of my suggestions that I will give is that the university autonomy should empower the university councils to decide what happens in the university. It came in 2004. It's there on paper, but government is not respecting it. And in addition to that autonomy is that students must, as a matter of compulsion, must be represented in the council of the university, because university is all about students. If democracy is what we are practicing, and we go to countries around the world from whom we borrowed the current university ideas, in the UK, in the United States, student first. There's hardly any council of any university in which student is not represented. Okay. So students must be represented, okay, so that their opinions will count in the process of
So Lady, I was going to ask you about that. That look, is there a law that needs to be adjusted to factor in students being brought into the room when conversations around their future is being discussed?
Well, personally, I'm not aware of any law. But I know that as a matter of prudence, that is what should be the norm. When issues, I mean, you cannot shave someone's head behind him. ASUU says we're fighting because our students are not getting quality education. If the lecturer is not well paid, he will not give his best. If the facilities are not okay, the students will not get the best. You understand? In some schools, you hear of students complaining that, oh, lecturers are always throwing out handouts for students to pay for. Because the lecturers have to survive too. So they have devised a means to raise additional income. And then there are standing rules that say, no, you can't do that. But they still go ahead and do it. Do you understand? So there is no, I mean, you must always hear the other side. You can't take certain decisions without factoring them in. But then, the bigger picture, when you look at it, is this. Autonomy. Prof mentioned that. Everything we are talking about is about autonomy. If the universities, it's on ground, it's part of the understanding that, like they said, there's judicial independence in Nigeria today. And yet, it is still a subject matter before courts. There was a strike last year where we were here discussing it, where they said, oh, there is independence, and the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria had to intervene at some point in time on this issue of, oh, this money should go directly to the court system where the chief judge should manage it. The same thing with universities. There is an understanding that says, oh, the universities are autonomous. When the NANS president said something about contracts and all that, the university system, as with most of the other things in Nigeria, are overregulated. There are a lot of things that government has no business delving into. They always come up with this idea that, oh, the reason why government must remain in there, than funding education and all that is, oh, if we just leave it to private individuals, it will be priced out of the reach of the poor. Why is it that private universities, you never hear of strikes? If you can afford it. Life is about class. If we continue to tell ourselves that, oh, we are practicing socialism or communism where government must pay for this, pay for that, we are wasting our time. There are no strikes in private universities. Why is it that the politicians don't send their children to these federal government universities? They go to universities abroad where the university has a president who is like a governor. In the US, the president of a university is like the governor of a state. He runs the university. The government is not interested. The intervention of government comes in form of a scholarship, loan facilitation. Bursary. They give them loan. Nigeria used to have bursary. We used to have loans. All these things have been scrapped. And then there are...
So you are saying we should go back to those things?
We should go back to that. There is no... Look, education cannot be totally free.
I think that understanding, needs to be made. But Mr. Barambu, we're winding down. We'll have just about 2 minutes to go on this segment. what would you be telling your fellow students now that ASUU is back? A lot of work is going to be literally speeded up, loaded. I hope that's not going to happen, Prof. But in the event that that happens, what would you be telling your fellow students when eventually that official announcement is made that ASUU is back in school?
So we're back.
Oh, you're back in school
back.
already.
Official.
So what would you be saying to your fellow students?
Okay, God bless you. God bless you 30 times. You see, just like you said to Pro, we are not saying we want to negotiate or anything, but just to observe. So that if anything goes wrong, if we are protesting, we'll say, no, we were there, the government agree on this and that. Not to be protesting and say, no, lecturers should go back to class, government should quickly fulfill their promise. No, we just want to know where the problem is coming. Because government will tell you it's ASUU, ASUU will tell you it's government. But that one, by the way, to our students, that's my colleagues, let us be law-abiding and be patient enough. As you know, the lecturers are a little bit angry, not because of the strike, but because of the educational system, the way it's going. So probably if they are coming back, they will be teaching a little bit aggressively before they will be able to forgive the government, forgive us, and we'll continue from where we saw. So let's be a little bit patient with them and law-abiding. Likewise, they should be a little bit patient with us. And on this note, I would like to say this thing clearly, that we are going to place our demand before the government. 8 months wasted for us. On this note, we have like 3 to 4 demands that we are going to submit to the federal government. One, they should waive out next session registration for us. Part of compensating us too for wasting 8 months. Secondly, the hostels bills, it should be waived out too. Then thirdly, the stipend for Nigerian students, not to the leadership, but to the student direct. At least, let's say 20,000 for a student to at least get some things that he will go back to school with it. We are going to place this demand. I think we have like 5 or 6, but once we are through with it, we'll address media on that and we'll submit it to the federal government. Likewise, to thank the Minister of Labor, Speaker, the President, and all the ASUU members and the stakeholders that are involved. There are things that a lot of people are not aware of it, but because of my position, I have a privilege of getting some information about it. And that is the same thing we have been telling the ASUU leadership, that for that 8 months is virtually the same thing what the Labor Minister said. Shift grounds so that we'll come to a compromise stage and we'll go back to class. Just like you made mention, after the 8 months, we couldn't achieve a lot.
Okay.
So, but with this now, I hope and pray that both parties will fulfill their own promise. As they promise to teach us well, let the government do the needful for them.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Barambu Umar. He's President, National Association of Nigerian Students. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I want to believe that there won't be any aggression in the classrooms. They are afraid.
Definitely, there will not be. Okay. You know, one thing you must not take away from ASUU members is that we don't have any other places to send our children. Okay. They are all in the public universities.
I just wanted to give him that assurance.
We can't be aggressive towards our children.
I just wanted to give him that assurance.
They are not the cause of our frustration.
Kaede Isuola is a professor of, he's a research associate professor of political science at UNILAG. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. John Oloyede, legal practitioner, well, he's called you barrister. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
So the task ahead is just the beginning of conversations. Let's hope that more will come to make the school system better. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll take on another issue. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. In a global effort to raise awareness on breast cancer, October was designated as the Pink Month. Pink, yes, the color. So the Pink Month is a month where efforts to educate those concerned about the disease, including early identification and signs and symptoms associated. It is believed that 90% of early stage breast cancers are curable, often with treatments that conserve the breast. Every year, breast cancer kills more than 500,000 women. And in resource-poor settings, a majority of women with breast cancer are diagnosed at an advanced stage of disease, resulting in low survival rates. Approximately 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. Annual mammograms are recommended for women 40 and older, and for younger women with specific breast cancer risk factors. What those risk factors are, the early warning signs, and some of those things, let's discuss this morning with Mrs. Mujia Nimashao, who is founder and executive director, St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
First of all, why is it called Pink Month?
Well, pink is meant to be, you know, when you have babies, they wear blue for boys and pink for girls, and I think that's where it originated from, because breast is considered a woman's organ, so to speak, and so that's why the pink.
Oh, okay. Because I thought maybe that.
But men can get breast cancer too.
Please don't bring that up yet. Scary enough. So why perhaps to even by way of educating those who may be hearing this for the first time in their lives, when we talk about breast cancer, cancer itself, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, cancer is a mutation of cells, pretty much. So that's why it can go to any part of the body. As long as the living cells, it doesn't go to the nails and it doesn't go to the hair because the cells are dead. But aside from that, it can travel to any part of the body because the cells mutate. Nobody knows how that originates. And once they mutate, one of the things that they do is that they continue to grow and they take over that organ without performing any function. So that's pretty much what it is. The cells, mutant cells that continue to grow and take over an organ, then they spread to other organs. And
what would even make a cell go rogue in the first place? Because that's the way it sounds.
Well, that's the million-dollar question we're still trying to answer. It's there have been factors that mitigate it sometimes, but we don't have actual pinpoint that if this, except for smoking, cigarettes, and lung cancer have been conclusively found, and then you have the HPV for the cervical cancer. But even that, you have people who have smoked all their lives and they don't get lung cancer, and you have people who've never smoked and they can get lung cancer. So it's still a lot of research is being done, a lot of money is being spent globally, but we still haven't come up with that answer. So what we're doing is ensuring that we reduce the factor when we find out that things may cause it, fatty globules and things like that. We try and watch people's diet, exercise, and all those things that would ensure that at least you have a fighting chance. And then, of course, the screening to ensure that once it's got, it can be treated early.
Okay, so perhaps to also ask, what are the likely risk factors for cancer? You know, especially breast cancer?
Well, breast cancer, like I said, smoking affects, it can be a predisposing factor for breast cancer. Fatty diet, obesity, those are some of the things that that can cause that are predisposing factors. They're not exclusive, but there's some of the things that can cause breast cancer.
You mentioned exercises the other time. Sounds like lifestyle can also be a factor.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, in other words, anyone who lives a sedentary lifestyle, you go to the office, you sit down for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Yes.
That person is at risk
of breast cancer and a lot of other things. Okay. But it's just and it's not to go overboard with dieting or with exercise, just in moderation and constant, not exercising for 1 hour of intense exercise and then you don't do anything again for the next week and things. Just to live in moderation and not processed foods is also something else. Eating as close to the original
state of
vegetable or the diet as possible.
Is it also a genetic illness like hypertension?
There's the risk, especially with the breast cancer. There's the BRCA1, BRCA2. I'm sure everybody's heard about Angelina Jolie and what she did when she got the breast cancer diagnosis. But so it can, and that's what the research has done over the years in trying to see the risk of family members getting it. There's the familial risk, which is that if you have a relation who has had breast cancer, there's the risk of it coming to other members of the family, but it's not a guaranteed that one would have it, but you just need to be more cautious. If you've had it in your family, then the age you start doing the mammograms and the frequency also changes.
Clearly, treatment of cancer is a very, very costly thing. So perhaps the reason for the advocacy, for the awareness, is because, look, maybe if we prevent it, we won't get to the point of having to spend humongous. But yes. So what's the level, in your opinion, of awareness of breast cancer in Nigeria?
It's still very, very low. It's very low. Unfortunately, we don't have statistics, the actual numbers. So it's always an about, but it's not even, for a population of 200 million, we haven't even covered maybe 2% of the population. And that's with the strive of constant NGOs and government. A lot still needs to be done in terms of making people understand, not only understand what cancer is, understand their bodies, to know when it, like for the breast cancer, to do the self-breast examination and ensure that they can catch the cancer early. The fact that if they do feel something, to go to the doctor first and not to the church or the mosque and deliverance, which is fine, but to make that the first port of call. Or if they go to the church first, for the pastor or the imam to say to them, go to the hospital, then come back and we'll pray that the surgeon does the right thing, the oncologist does the right thing. So there's a lot of ground to be covered. It's being covered very slowly, but because of our size and the girth of the issue, it's still very much in its fledgling stage.
So many grounds to cover in this conversation, but so let me try to and I also wish I could ask you to do a demonstration of how people can check, self-check before you go to other places, because 500,000 women around the world is not a small figure.
No.
And so how bad is it in Nigeria? Any ideas?
Well, it's in Nigeria and a lot of low and middle income countries, and I don't mind doing the self-exam. I mean, I have 3 children. I don't have any shame left. But in Nigeria, it's for when that's in my our foundation did a survey. The percentage and it was a small survey. People educated and semi-literate, illiterate. Book-wise, maybe 5-6% had actually heard about. This was done about 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6% of them had actually heard, about maybe 10% of them had heard of cancer, knew what to do, and only about 2% knew the breast examination and things like that. So it's still, like I said, it's almost nominal, because the amount of people in any demographic, whether the educated who, can educate themselves, maybe from, if you don't know, then it doesn't matter kind of thing. They're not aware. And then you have the educated who probably don't have the access to the information. And then you have those who are in the deep rural areas who don't have a clue, and they feel that it's somebody doing them, so to speak. And so it's very, 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 very high rate of cancer awareness illiteracy in our country.
Okay. Well, you talked about what many civil society organizations, NGOs are doing around this. What's your own foundation doing around that?
Our foundation is it's a cancer treatment foundation. Okay. I'm a radiation therapist, so I founded it because when people get diagnosed, it's one thing to get them aware, and then they get screened, and then they get diagnosed. And then what do you do with them? We don't have enough centers. We have maybe 5 centers working now for 200 million people, and WHO says we should have at least 200. I worked in the US, and in a city probably the size of Lagos, you probably find 50, 20, at least 20, maybe 50, but at least 20 cancer treatment centers where people can get treated. So that's why we decided to focus on treatment, because there are many other NGOs, working. We do awareness, we do screening as well, but also to go one step further, to actually build cancer treatment centers where people can come for treatment and have more options than we have right now.
The humongous costs of treating cancer is definitely killing. Is it the same thing at your foundation?
We're self-sustaining. Okay. There's no, we can't be unrealistic about the cost of cancer, but what we try to do with our patients is try and get discounted drugs, go the extra effort, get discount from the drug manufacturers, help them to navigate the fundraising if they don't have any funds. So that's the extra thing, because we're an NGO that ensures. But yes, it's a self-sustaining center. So
now, you said you don't mind you, because perhaps one of the issues is people hear this kind of conversation that we're having now, and they're wondering, okay, you say I should do self-check, and when it's not conclusive, or when I'm not sure, I go out. How do people do self-check? What do they look for?
Well, you can actually Google it. There's a lot of pictures, video on YouTube. There's a lot of information out there. But the whole point of it is that to ensure that you have a system, you pick a date that you do it consistently every month. For women who are still having their periods, don't pick it around your period time, because our breasts they tend to be swollen around that time. So maybe maybe a week after your period, pick a time and then do the self-breast exam. It's really quite simple. All you do is put your arm up above your head. Okay. This you do in a standing position, in a lying down position, and then just start from one end and just press around from the outer edge inside into your breast. What this does is that it gets you familiar with your normal breast. So if anything is different, you will be able to notice quickly. If you notice there's something that is hard, immovable, or something that it's there 1 month and it feels as if it feels bigger the next month, or something like that, you can be able to know and go and see the doctor immediately. Okay. A lot of the times, majority of the time, it's maybe benign cyst, and as African women, we have very fibrous, dense breast, so it might be a lobule. So, but for that one time that it is breast cancer, you need to ensure that you go to the doctor.
You mentioned benign now, and there is benign lump, then there is malignant.
Yes.
Now, I also read, because I had reason to, that anyone who has had a benign lump is at risk of a malignant. Can you confirm that?
It's better if it's a benign lump. We always advocate it's better out than in, is what we. So whether if it's benign, let it be removed. It doesn't mean that, I mean, if it's removed, then it's out of you. Same thing with cancer of the cervix. If you see there's a pre-cancerous stage where you can actually treat the patient and then reduce the risk of cancer. Yes, so it's better for anybody, if they have a benign lump, for to have it removed than to keep it in and then be watching it.
Okay. I'd like you to make an appeal to women right now so that we can bring down these numbers and help them also to educate other people like them who need to know that cancer is preventable and it can be better managed so that we can reduce the fatal figures.
Okay. Well, I appeal to women, and I have to appeal to men as well, because I know Ayo doesn't want to accept it, but men can get breast cancer. But I appeal to everybody to please know your breast, do the self-breast exam, look it up. Everybody has a cell phone now that they can look things up on, or ask people, and just ensure that you do the self-breast exam once a month, understand your new body, and if anything is wrong, it's better to go to the doctor and find out rather than keeping it to yourself. Keeping it to yourself does not help. It doesn't help anybody, and it just reduces the risk, it increases the risk of the person getting the tumor getting bigger. So I appeal to you to please know your well breast so that you can know if anything happens that is wrong.
Well, we have to thank you very much this morning. At least that's out of the bag. So do the needful on your own self so that at least you live longer. Mrs. Moji Animashaw is founder and executive director, St. Cyril Cancer Treatment Foundation. Thank you again for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So that's out of the bag. Do it. It's a whole month of cancer awareness, breast cancer awareness to be precise, all over the world. We're back after now. We're still talking health. Well, as you can see, we're talking about disease surveillance and control, and of course, who better to address that with us this morning than the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which is Nigeria's public health institute with the mandate to detect, prevent, and respond to diseases of public health importance. Dr. Ifedaya Adetifa is Director General, Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Thank you for joining us this morning, Doc. Well, perhaps it's okay for me to begin by saying, hey, it's been about a year or thereabout for you now in the saddle. How's it been?
It's been interesting. Thank you for having me to start with. It's been almost a year of, whirlwind challenges, you know, and it has been interesting so far. Which is why I'm still here.
Well, thank you again for being here and for what you do. Perhaps it's also good to ask you what the challenges of the job are for you. Literally managing the surveillance and disease surveillance and control for 200 million plus people. It's no mean job.
Yes, indeed, it is no mean feat to have to serve 200 million people across 36 states and the federal capital. And doing that through the platform provided by what is a relatively young agency, which over time has managed to punch well above its weight despite the challenges in front of it. But we continue to push to scale up what we need to do to really ensure that we have impact and have a presence that is felt by all of the citizens that we serve. The challenges there, of course, include every activity that we need to do needs resources. So financial resources are important, but even when you have financial resources, you do need the human capital. You need skilled and highly motivated workforce, and you need not just a few of them, but enough of them to achieve coverage and to achieve scale. The other challenge, perhaps, is people do not often relate our health security to our healthcare system, but the healthcare system as a whole, through very well functioning primary health care and universal health coverage, is actually the foundation for health security, because health security certainly depends on having a resilient health system. And we know that there's been quite a bit of neglect in that area for decades, and it will take more than the efforts of one government in even 2 terms of office to close that gap. But we are seeing the needle moving a bit in that aspect with revitalization efforts for primary health care, with the changes into the national insurance function and package, and we hope that that will continue to make sure that citizens have unlimited access to care and therefore are able to contribute to surveillance. It makes it easier to detect signals of outbreaks, and hopefully access to primary health care also is quite closely linked to the uptake of vaccination, and the uptake of vaccination with high coverage then also will mean that we will have less of a challenge with vaccine-preventable diseases.
Well, Dr. Aditifa, a natural question that comes to mind now when you talk about personnel, capacity, one question that comes to mind is that of partnership with the states. I'd like you to speak to that partnership and other critical partners within the Nigerian system that you have to work with, that you have had to work with, that you are having to work with. You are the 3rd DG of the NCDC over time, and you perhaps have been in the system for long enough to know how well or not those partnerships, particularly with partnership with the states, has helped to deal with some of these issues. Because there are those who would wonder, look, we shouldn't be having issues with Lassa fever. We shouldn't be having issues with some disease because we know it's going to happen in a year. Just recently, the flooding took over a number of states in the country, and we hear that more of it is going to come. And naturally, diseases will follow when the floods abate. So what kind of partnership is there with the states? Is there a system established, or do you still have pushbacks with some agencies or individuals in some agencies at the states level?
Well, it's a very important question, and I think it's important that I highlight that, for all of the success that the NCDC that's been attributed to the NCDC, none of this would have been possible without our close collaboration with our state partners. We are based in Abuja. Yes, we can deploy when it's required to provide support in states, but that's essentially what it is, to provide support. We do not have a standing army that can be deployed across 36 states and the federal capital at the same time. Okay, so we depend on the state ministries of health. We depend on the state departments of public health. We depend on the state epidemiologists, and of course the disease surveillance and notification officers and the lab focal persons and all of the like. So we are in constant communication with all of these people that I've mentioned to varying extents. We certainly have regular interactions with our state epidemiologists to discuss matters that are within the remit of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and to understand what challenges they may have in, of course, implementing or carrying out their statutory function. So I don't have any complaints as far as sort of cooperation or collaborating with the states. But I think it's important to also highlight that just as there are challenges in the at national level, there are also challenges on the state level. The states vary in terms of the manpower that is available, in terms of the size of the state epidemiologist unit, in terms of the number of expert personnel that are there. There's frequent attrition, as everybody knows, frequent transfers in and transfers out. So that also is a challenge for sort of departmental or institutional memory, which is one reason why, for example, whether it's state-led or federal government-led, there's often a need for repeat and repeat training, because sometimes some of the people that you've trained and built their capacity to do particular functions then are no longer in that position. And of course, there's the challenge of financial resources. Until recently, there was no state that had a budget line for emergency response and even emergency preparedness. And as a result of lessons learned from COVID and the advocacy by partner organizations, civil society organizations, at least 2 states have budget lines for emergency response. So states have, this is just to discuss some of the challenges that are common to all of the states along with the national government. And of course, then there will be state-specific challenges that all of these teams have.
Dr. Aditifa, I find it very interesting what you just said now about states not having budget lines for emergencies. Could you please expatiate on that, and how crucial is it?
Well, it is very important. I've had to contend with a number of public health challenges, maybe in the last decade. But I'm sure you will agree with me that perhaps it's not until COVID in particular that the term national health security or global health security became a bit better known or well known. Obviously, the experts or the practitioners in the field would have been aware, but this was not the sort of consciousness of most of the ordinary people and our political leaders in preceding years. So with the advent of COVID, that's now on everybody's lips, and everybody recognizes that countries need to be responsible for their own destiny, so to say, as far as their health security is concerned, even while that contributes to global health security. So if you think about it, in recognition of this and some of the challenges we've had in previous years, having to respond to Ebola, having to respond to monkeypox reemergence, having to respond to those outbreaks of meningitis and the like, perhaps these were stimuli that also led the government to finally sign into law the acts that established the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention in 2018, and then which basically was an effort to bring better coordination, more efficiency, and leadership to things that relate to national health security and the threat of communicable diseases to public health. So if, that is the journey for the national government, which means, again, to an extent, despite the best efforts of state ministries of health and their respective departments of public health and the state epidemiologist teams, they are in some ways slightly behind in that journey. And just like it's, even at national level, we had not had an emergency response fund or money kept aside for emergency function for until recently. This is the same situation that is in states. But as I said, in realization of the need to have preparedness and response for threats within state borders and, of course, across state borders, and also in recognition that we would only be as strong as our weakest link in the country, we are quite keen to help our state partners to understand also their own responsibilities to put in place things to assure health security, even whilst contributing to our national health security. And we have a lot of partners operating in that space, especially among advocacy groups and all of that. And it's actually pleasing to see that as a result of their activities, as a result of also government realization, national health security budgets and releases have increased. We've got a national action plan for health security that is also funded to an extent and is being implemented. And we are working with our states, our partners, to also ensure that they do that, of course, a scaled down version of that in their respective domains,
Okay,
so that we
Dr.
all
Adejiva,
achieve. Yes.
Just a second. So, so far, as you said, and perhaps many of them are working towards including emergency budget lines in the budgets, emergency, funding for emergencies in their budgets going forward. But for now, you said only 2 states have budget lines for emergency. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the threats of known diseases and unknown diseases are high. We understand that Ebola is in Uganda's capital city, and we have dealt with Ebola before. We were able to fence it off, even though at the risk of the lives of some of our personnel in this country. We also know, and you are definitely aware, that COVID figures are rising in Europe, the UK perhaps to be precise, and a number of other countries might be battling things that hopefully will not, but is highly likely will come because we are such an open economy and all of that. So if states do not have that, are they even aware of the risks? Because we have international airports in Lagos and in Abuja, and they can go anywhere to any part of the country from there. So how do we get ahead of those emerging, God forbid, but almost certain onslaughts of these diseases if we do not have these budget lines?
Well, it's desirable to have the budget lines and to have the releases, which shows some proactive thinking. But we also need to recognize that governments have perhaps not done too badly in mobilizing resources when they are required for emergency response. We just want to move a step away from that to make sure that whatever additional lag time that is there when you have to wait for resources to be mobilized before you respond to conditions is completely removed as the next step in our growth. But in terms of awareness, with us working with state partners and with port health authorities, for example, we do work out plans for responding to these threats, especially those that may come into our international airports, as we are currently doing as part of our alertness or of the raised alert level for Ebola.
Well, that's Ebola there. We have dealt with that before. Any lessons from the past that might still be relevant?
Oh, certainly the lessons are there, and there's institutional memory, and believe it or not, there are still quite a number of people who were part of the response there that are still in the system. And of course, going from Ebola, I've even had to contend with other outbreaks and even provide support to other countries in the continent. So in terms of the human capacity, to respond to Ebola. That is there, and we are in a better place perhaps than we were when Ebola first arrived. So it's a condition we have seen. It's a condition to which we have some familiarity, even if it's not as frequently occurring here in Nigeria as it occurs in East Africa and Central Africa.
Okay.
But the human capacity is certainly there.
Okay. How about COVID? We understand there is a 14% jump in the UK, and knowing the relationship between Nigeria and the UK is certainly something that could be giving you some concern, isn't it?
Yes, so we remind citizens that the COVID pandemic is still there and has not gone away despite our efforts to return back to what the normal life or whatever the new normal is. At this time, we are aware that the COVID situation across the world is as varied as there are many countries in the world. The increases in Europe and in many countries in the Northern Hemisphere will definitely happen as they go into winter. And winter is a period where you have increases in respiratory pathogens. So whether respiratory diseases, so whether historically what they dealt with was flu. So the flu season is approaching. All other respiratory diseases like COVID will probably also increase. But I think what we need to keep in mind is that one of the successes of public health in terms of COVID, as a result of vaccination, as a result of natural immunity, is that we now seem to have achieved a full disconnect between number of cases, numbers of hospitalized patients and deaths. And that's an important thing to highlight. Of course, you can't totally ignore number of cases, because if you get a large number of cases, even if they are not dying and they require hospitalization, then it means that your health system can be quickly overwhelmed.
Well, Dr. Adetifa, you listened to the conversation we had earlier about cancer, breast cancer, and that the awareness level from the NGO representative of the NGO that came to speak with us, the awareness level is very low. Perhaps it's a case for a number of other illnesses in the country. But speak perhaps, if you can, specifically to breast cancer. It's the month of breast cancer awareness. What is your understanding of the level of awareness in the country, and why do you think it's so low?
Well, if we're speaking specifically about breast cancer, of which I must start off with a caveat that that's not my area of expertise, but I have had relations who have had cancer and breast cancer. I think part of the challenge we need to sort of recognize is that for a long time, the focus in the country and in our part of the world has been on what then was the obvious burden of infectious disease conditions, of malaria, of meningitis, of even those that are epidemic prone, of cholera and all of that. So in lower, middle, or less resource countries, most of the burden of, or the disease components that are seen has always been communicable. Okay, but in the background, the non-communicable diseases, which include cancer, which include cardiovascular conditions, cerebrovascular conditions, speaking about strokes and all of the things related to that, have been slowly creeping up in the background. And of course, with lifestyle changes, with urbanization, with all changes in diets, increases in level of sedentary life and all of that, we are seeing, of course, an increase in non-communicable diseases, including cancers and the like. And they are beginning to approach sort of equal weighting with communicable conditions. But because we've not paid as much attention to them in the past as we have done to communicable diseases, we're still somewhat behind in terms of awareness and in terms of the efforts that needs to be put into community engagement and risk communication for non-communicable diseases, including cancers and breast cancer in particular.
Well, at least you've spoken quite, impactfully on it, even though you said it's not your area of specialty. But then, another one that comes to mind are what one would call seasonal illnesses. I don't know where we'll put cholera in that, in your frequent or occasional advisory that you recently published, that NCDC recently published. We are in a cholera outbreak. And I'm wondering, if this wasn't preventable. The natural question that will come to me about that would be, what role the local governments or the health officers or environmental officers at the local government level could have played in ensuring this doesn't happen, or at least we curtail it to the barest minimum?
Well, cholera, I'm glad you asked that question. Cholera is something that keeps me awake at night, despite the fact that it's a condition that all of the solutions to preventing it and responding to it are actually well known. There's nothing new. We don't need a new vaccine. We don't need a new treatment. The challenge with cholera is all about water, sanitation, and hygiene. The absence of potable or safe water supply in many communities that are affected by cholera, and the practice of open defecation, which also is a signal that sewage is not properly managed. So the seasonal nature is one that comes from when the rains then come. So what happens is, in the rainy season, and when the rains become really established, all they do is that they wash all the we've been practicing open defecation. So they wash everything into the water sources. So the water sources become contaminated, and people then consume that and use that, and then they come down with cholera. It's very simple, yet rather distressing that we continue to experience this disease, not as small outbreaks, but as really large outbreaks as we have seen. So if we had the required investments in water, sanitation, hygiene, including, community dams, boreholes, just safe water, if we stopped practicing or reduced significantly the practice of open defecation and managed our sewage and other effluents better, we would have an instant impact on cholera. And this is where, as you say, provision of water, sanitation, and hygiene is a local government and a state function. And we need, despite the neglect that to expansion of water supply and water works that may have happened for decades before now, there is now a need for really significant investments in that space if we are going to have impact and drastically reduce suffering and death that is attributed to cholera.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned, the local government system there. It will seem like I've become some sort of advocate. What's the body language, in your opinion, of governments at from various states about restoring those environmental offices and the local government's level?
Well, we are speaking to partners, and even at national level, to look at health, human health, and the interventions that are required to preserve human health from something called a One Health perspective. And the One Health perspective or strategy is one that recognizes that human beings, animals, we all coexist in the same environment. And anything that happens in any of those sectors, whether it's in the environmental sector or happens in the animal sector, and even in the human sector, will have impacts across the chain. So if we achieve, what we need to achieve is a complete change in mindset, where these various sectors, even though they're in different ministries and different departments, they need to come together more often to jointly plan. That's to always, when you're thinking about environmental activities, always think about what impact it may have on animals and humans, and what changes in animal health and human health may have on the environment, and then bring all of these other partners on board when you are making your plans so that you can get that input. We, at national level, have some relatively good coordination between our colleagues in the animal health sector and in the health sector. And we are trying to ensure that that same relationship it becomes as strong between both partners and the environment, which is slightly behind. And an area of growth for the NCDC and for all of the One Health partners as we go forward is to also establish this philosophy, this pattern of work all the way down to our various subnational units. And that needs quite a bit of work, but the idea is welcome. There's enthusiasm for it. It's just a lot of work that needs to be done in that space, including, the awareness, the retraining, the monitoring, the evaluation, just to make sure when you're trying to sort of, this is akin to implementing behavioral change or a change of thought or philosophy, and that needs some time to fully graft and then to become the new normal.
Well, you've told us a lot today, and I believe that so many people have been better educated. Dr. Ifedayo Adetifa is Director General, Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Thank you so much for being a part of our conversation this morning. Congratulations on spending 1 year in office, and all the best.
Thank you very much for having me. And at the NCDC, we certainly appreciate our partnership with all of our media partners. You make our work easier, so thank you.
All right then, thank you. So Sunrise continues right after now with another topic. Please stay with us. Staying with us, it's still Sunrise. Hope you enjoy that music, by the way. Now, Company Program is one of the flagship programs of Junior Achievement Nigeria that teach senior secondary level students how to start and run their own business, develop a product or service, and market their brand with the support of a volunteer. I thought that's something that's for just COPPERS, National Youth Service Corps, NYSC students, but now senior secondary school levels. Let's get into this conversation with Mr. Emmanuel Oturu, who is Program Manager, Junior Achievement Nigeria. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Good morning. Good morning.
Yomi Sikiru Habiba Ayomikun is a student, Green Apex Student Company, PRO.
Good morning.
That's you. Good morning. No wonder. Folami Imisioluwa Oluwa Tamilore is a student and Green Apex Student Company CEO. No wonder. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Oturu. Exactly what's this company program? You've told us about it. It teaches. What is it about?
Okay, so it's one of our core programs where we teach young people how to start and run a business. And we teach them quite early so they can test run the essential skills of running a business. The chances are some may succeed, some could fail, but they take the lessons as they move on. So we focus on senior secondary school students. It's part of our core pillars, which is entrepreneurship. But for the company program, it captures our entire pillars: financial literacy, digital literacy, work readiness skills, because a group of students come together and they set up a business. They pick a business name, they decide on days of their meeting, the board meetings in the week, they develop.
How long is the whole program?
16 weeks.
16 weeks to start a business.
Yes.
What was your experience like, Imisi?
It was a wonderful experience because we were able to learn some leadership skills, and the JAN was really supportive. They provided the necessary materials and the trainings that we needed. And it was really impactful for us as students because being new to stuff like this, creating a company, our elections, it was really fun and exciting. And our volunteers too, who came to teach us, they were really supportive. They dedicated their time to teaching us. So it was a really wonderful experience.
How did you become CEO?
We had an election.
Oh.
Yes.
You elect CEOs. I thought you elected presidents.
Well, CEO and president, they're kind of the same thing. Where we had an election for our board of directors. Yeah.
Well, I can see a trophy beside you. We'll come back to that later. So, for you, what would you consider the most significant impact of this program?
It taught all of us how to work together as a team, how to create companies, how to bring up innovative ideas, how to basically teaching us leadership skills, teamwork, hard work, and so on.
What did it change in you?
Okay, it taught me
how. What did it change in you?
Normally, I start something and give up if it's not working my way. But this taught me how to be focused, to be determined, to be patient. Yes, listen to others' opinion, and always remember that no idea is stupid. So if someone comes up with something, you have to be patient and listen to everybody rather than just shut them up. So I learned how to be patient, hardworking, and dedicated.
Did they also teach you how to save? Because before now, you just spend the money.
I spend as I get.
Okay, we don't really have much time. Let me come back to you, Imisi. So tell us about this trophy. How did this come to be? Or what is it? What is this trophy for?
This is because we won the NCOI competition, which is National Company of the Year, with our product, the biodegradable and our product, which is Biozen.
Show me the product.
Biozen is a biodegradable.
What do you call it?
Biozen.
Biozen.
Yes.
That's the name of your product.
Yes.
What does it do to the body?
It's a sanitary pad.
Oh.
Yes.
Show us.
Okay.
No, you don't have to bring it out. Just...
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Biozen.
Yes.
Is it branded? Yes, it is branded.
Yes. Sir.
Okay, tell us where did the idea come from in the first place? My producer said you can remove it. She's a woman as well.
Okay.
So remove it and let's see it.
Okay.
No, go talk while you are removing it. Go ahead.
Okay. Biozen was a product that we came up with in our company because period poverty is something that most people don't really consider. Like, most people aren't aware of period poverty and what it's doing to us in Africa and Nigeria. So when we created our Biozen sanitary pad, it's biodegradable.
My director wants to... okay, that's it. Go ahead.
It's a biodegradable, and this one is made out of banana fiber, which we got from the banana stem. It's best for users with heavy flu.
I'm lost.
You're lost? Okay, let me start from the beginning.
Please.
Okay. As a company, we decided to come up with a product that would help the environment and individuals personally. So we came up with Biozen, which is a biodegradable and reusable sanitary pad. Biozen product comes in...
Reusable sanitary pad?
Yes. This one isn't reusable, but there are two different types of the Biozen sanitary pad. The biodegradable and reusable cotton fiber sanitary pad, which is best for users that have light flu. Okay. And this one is the biodegradable banana fiber sanitary pad that we got it from the banana stem, which we processed to the banana fiber, and it's best for users with heavy flu.
So how does it absorb? I never, Mr. Emmanuel, did you know?
The banana fiber it replaces the sheet that is in a regular sanitary pad. So we use banana fiber as the absorbent sheet. Okay. So it holds the large quantity of blood.
Okay. It doesn't leak off like...
No, it doesn't leak.
Okay. So how many people are in this company?
We are 33 members. We have 33 members and 12 executives.
And you are the CEO?
Yes.
Wow. So you're part of the same company?
Yes.
Okay, wow, she's so confident. So when this idea came up for you, how easy was it for everybody to agree to it?
At the beginning, first of all, coming up with this idea was hard because we thought of many things, starting from the biogas to a power bank that you can put on the road. But agreeing on this, we had to first of all inform everyone that, okay, this is the problem we are facing, that this is why we should create this product, so they understand the reason for this creation. Boys were really supportive, even though it wasn't their. Well, it's not something they knew about, but they calmed down, they relaxed, they learned everything about it, they helped in the production. So it took time for everyone to agree, but we reached there.
Boys were really supportive.
They were really
I'm gonna
supportive.
take that away from what you have said. So you won this trophy for the company.
Yes, sir.
What are the parameters for adjudging theirs the company of the year?
Okay, so for a company to emerge, first the company will be formed at the school level, and they will operate following a set of guidelines and criteria. Business name, carry out their spark projects. After that, they will compete at the state level. So the National Company of the Year is the competition where all state winners come together to compete for this trophy. And we have a set of judges and guidelines from product design to needs met, to marketing, to sales, to financials. So there are various things in the template that they must meet. So for you to emerge winner, you must have exceeded expectations and risen above every other team. This year we had 12 teams from 11 states, including a special school from Kano State, it was intense. We had lots of products, from wooden robots to convertible shirts, to different design products from the various companies. At the end of the day, the judges, after assessing them for over 4 hours, were able to come up with the team as the winning team. Well deserved.
I'll come back to you, but how bad is the period poverty problem you talked about?
About 20% of females don't go to school when they are on their period, because they can't afford the normal sanitary pad. That's why they don't go to school, and that is like 20% of the school year, which is drawing them back. And we just felt like we were females, and it's something that is there to us. So creating a solution to this problem, making it aware to everybody, by this we are also saving lives and we are educating people about this problem.
Genius. So, Mr. Oturu, beg your pardon. After this program, what next for the participants?
Okay, so first, we expect them to take the lessons learned, whether you win or not, to go in and start up and become an entrepreneurial evangelist, where you just encourage people. We've seen over the years that our students proceed to set up businesses. We've had a couple of alums that have set up businesses. For the winning team, they are going to proceed to represent Nigeria at the Africa COI. That's the African competition. There are different stages. They won at the state, they won at the national, and we are hopeful that they will win the African competition and now go for the global competition. For the others, we also do post-event mentoring, where some of them are connected to mentors and they learn much more. We also have those that are going to apprenticeship. Now, the beauty of the company program is that all the students that participate are in their penultimate year in secondary school. So they are going to proceed to write WAEC. And after WAEC, rather than sit back at home, most of them now apply the skills learned in school to support their families while they wait for university education.
I understand that you had some support for this program?
Yes, sure. So first we want to start by thanking our lead sponsor for the National Company of the Year, which is First Bank Nigeria. So for the company program, we have other sponsors that sponsor different locations. We have Citibank, we have Art Foundation, we have a partnership with the Project Management Institute through the GA Africa partnership, and we also would want to thank our schools and our volunteers because they made it possible for us to achieve this, and our teachers.
Now, let me come back to you, Habiba, right?
Yes.
So now you've done this and you've listened to some of the expectations, from you. What would you advise other young students like yourself?
I'll advise them to be open-minded. They should never stop believing. They should be innovative, and they should always remember that no idea is stupid. So they should always aim to be at the top. Even if there are ups and downs, they should never look at that and give up. They should strive to be the best.
And what would you be telling parents?
Parents, I would say that they should be really supportive of their kids, because going for something like this is taking on a huge task, and if you don't have the support of others, you might not be able to continue. So I would advise parents to continue to support their children to go for things
16
like this.
weeks away from home is a long time for any parent, wouldn't you say?
It is.
So,
But
again, what would you, considering mommy and daddies feel, especially mommy, mommy's boys and mommy's girls and daddy's girls, what would you be telling the parents?
I would still tell them to be supportive, because our win is their win also. So if they are supportive, they continue to motivate their kids to do great things, then day to day will be great, because my win is my parents' win.
Mommy, your win is mommy's win.
Yes.
Tell her when you get home.
Okay.
You know, Mr. Turu, I'd like you to also speak to parents here, because to a large extent, getting parents to let their children go out for such projects as this is a Herculean task. You would agree with me. So what would you be telling parents?
Okay, thank you so much. First, I would say that our programs are in school. So we engage the students in school. It's the competitions that take them out of their schools.
For how long?
No, the competition is 3 hours. So that's what takes them out of the school. But I would want to say to all parents that the future is not tomorrow. We create the future we want. So let's support our kids. If you're listening to us and your kids your kids' school have not signed up to be part of the JAM project, it's a huge opportunity. We've gotten a couple of messages and calls from people that they want to be part of the JAM project. So encourage your kids. Yeah, most parents want their kids to go get paid employment, but every work is someone's business. So it's important they also learn the business side of things. And engineer achievement, like we always say, you can be an entrepreneur, but most importantly, you'll be entrepreneurial. So wherever you find yourself, you'll be productive.
Okay.
I would want to also add that Channels TV, we want to thank Channels for the media partnership we've enjoyed over the years, and First Bank. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay. You still pay all the same. I have to thank you all for being here this morning. Emmanuel Uturu is Program Manager, Junior Achievement Nigeria,
Thank you so
as well as Folami Imisioluwa Oluwatamilore, who is student, Green Apex student, company CEO. Look it already. As well as Yomi Sikiru Habiba Yomiko, who is also a student, Green Apex student, and company PRO. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
This morning. Well, you heard it all. I don't think there's anything new that I can add. We'll take a short break, and when we return, let's talk about your lifestyle. Does that title scare you? Allergies and intolerances. The only thing that I ever thought about when you hear about intolerances was lactose intolerance. I know, because if I drink milk, I am nauseated. That's me. I don't know how many people also have to endure that. But then there are allergies. Is it possible for people to have allergies and not know that they have allergies? Well, let's have that conversation this morning with our guests, who is Dr. Bisola Kadiku, naturopath and doctor of natural medicine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Perhaps we should begin with some definitions.
Yeah.
Food allergies, intolerances. What are we talking about?
They're two different things.
Oh.
Yes. A food allergy is the immune system's reaction to certain foods. That's food allergy. Food intolerance is a condition in which a person is unable to digest certain foods.
Oh. Okay. I'm trying to make sense of that. How do you know that your body cannot digest something?
We have symptoms that range from diarrhea to even more severe conditions. If you can't tolerate certain foods or you can't digest certain foods, you find out that within 30 minutes to 2 hours of eating these foods, you have symptoms like heartburn, diarrhea, headaches, yeah, and it stays there. And if you do not do anything about it over the years, it begins to affect your organs, your digestive system.
Just to be clear, is it food intolerance when people eat something and maybe 48 hours after they see it in their, in their feces?
Yes, it could be.
Oh.
It means that you're not digesting it well, so you're not able to break it down. For instance, let's talk about lactose intolerance. It's either you're born with that genetic disorder whereby you lack an enzyme called lactase. So you cannot digest it, or you grow into it. People actually grow into it.
How?
Because, as you grow older, that enzyme depletes in certain people.
Okay.
So people will say that I was doing well taking milk when I was younger.
Yes, I was.
And now, all of a sudden, I cannot digest it any longer.
I nauseate.
So you have nausea, you sometimes vomit, you have diarrhea, you just have a disorder in your digestive system generally. That's how you know that you have an intolerance to that food.
So I am assuming that lactose intolerance is not the only intolerance.
No, it's not. We also have something called a casein intolerance.
Speak English.
Okay. Lactose, both are found in milk.
Okay.
Lactose is the sugar found in milk. Casein is the protein found in milk. So you take milk, for instance, as a layman, and then you begin to react. And you say, oh, I'm lactose intolerant. No, it doesn't have to be lactose. It could be the casein. It could be that you can tolerate the lactose, but you cannot tolerate the casein. So I allow you to say, I'm lactose intolerant.
So long as you know you are intolerant of something.
Of that milk.
I've also heard about gluten intolerance.
Yes,
what is that?
Thank you. You see, that is the one that I'm campaigning against a lot.
Oh.
And I'm creating an awareness in Nigeria because I am a victim. And it is so serious and common that, I think we should bring it into an awareness, because all over the world now, there is a great awareness. Gluten is a protein found in foods like rye, barley, and wheat. You see, I put wheat to the last because I want to shock a lot of people. You may not be able to tolerate the wheat that you're eating, and you don't even know it because you are not gut sensitive to it. All right, gut is your digestive system.
That's GUT.
GUT.
Okay.
So the gut is that long rope, I would call, right from your esophagus to your colon. So it includes your small intestine, your large intestine, your,
Stomach and the rest of them.
yes, your stomach. And, you become sensitive to this food called gluten when you eat it. So it gives you a lot of heartburn. It gives you diarrhea, sometimes constipation, a headache. It's like poison spreading all over your body.
But just to bring this home very quickly, because we're just talking about intolerances now, we haven't even spoken about allergies. So, and I'm also assuming that you can't just go to the market and buy gluten. They are contained in foods, right?
Yeah, they are contained in foods.
Okay, so in what kinds of foods do we have them?
I've just said it, wheat.
Wheat?
Wheat is the most common. Rye is not something everybody eats. Barley is found in malt drinks.
Okay.
Some countries, they use barley in their beer, in their beers. I hear Nigeria doesn't use that, so the beer drinkers are, they can rejoice, But in wheat. So think about all wheat-based foods.
Such as the swallows themselves, right?
I'm talking about bread.
Bread?
I'm talking about pastries. I'm talking about pasta. Anything that contains wheat. You see, the sad thing about it is that many people are sensitive, but like I said, they are not gut sensitive. So if you're gut sensitive, you're one of the very lucky ones, because within 30 minutes, you begin to feel the discomfort. Within 30 minutes of eating it, you begin to feel the discomfort. So your senses will tell you, look, I better stop eating this. It's so uncomfortable. I can tell you, because like I said, I'm one of the people that are gut sensitive to it. I cannot even take cakes. Not even a bit of it. It's like poison in my body.
How does it feel? We've spoken about lactose intolerance, nausea, and all those things. What are the symptoms? Because people maybe have been having this condition and not even know what it is.
I just said it. It starts usually with a heartburn.
Okay.
Some people have told me, some patients have walked into my clinic telling me that, I don't know, I eat something, I don't know what it is, and I get heartburns. I get, it's like my whole system is in disarray. I get a feeling of having ulcer. I get pain in my stomach. I don't know what food it is. And I say, okay, let's go over all the foods that you eat. So they start with the most suspicious ones, and then we break it down to, I just ask a question. Do you eat bread? And they're like, oh, of course, I've been eating bread since I was little. It's bread. I said, that's your problem.
Bread.
And they're like, what? Bread? But even bread is in the Bible. I said, I don't know what bread is in the Bible, but that is your problem. So I tell them, I'm not going to give you any medication. You go home, in 1 month, avoid these foods and come back to me and tell me if you still have these symptoms. And usually it's amazing. And you know what? Even their medical conditions improve. And they're like, I don't believe it. So they go around and campaign against gluten. You see, it's a serious matter that all over the world now, well, when I say all over the world, in countries where I have been to lately, they have foods for us. So you walk into your regular coffee shop and you want cookies, and I can confidently ask them, do you have gluten-free cookies? And they're like, yes, we do. So they take care of people like us. In the UK, 2 months ago, my cousin called me and said, you won't believe what is going on here. There is a fair where bakers are displaying goods that are gluten-free. So someone like me can eat bread again. Someone like me can eat cookies, but they're all gluten-free.
How serious is that problem in our country?
It is so serious that people come down with diseases like cancer, like diabetes, and usually they can't trace it to it because it's either they're not gut sensitive or they are, but they just can't trace it to the gluten. It is a serious problem.
Wow. Well, it's looking like a topic for a seminar on its own. But let's talk about one or two other things. I mean, you've spoken about allergies as well.
Allergies, yes.
What are those allergies? What are allergies, and how do people get sensitive to them? I think the instructive word this morning is sensitivity. We don't seem to I mean, as you said, we've been having these meals for a million years, and all of a sudden I should stop. So how do I identify things that I'm allergic to?
You eat the food, and like I said, within 30 minutes to 2 hours of eating the food, you get symptoms from skin rashes to itching to respiratory tract disorder. Yes, some won't even be able to breathe. You know, some people eat shellfish, for instance, and in 30 minutes they react. They have swollen lips. They have swollen eyes. They have tears coming down. Coming out of their eyes. You know, they end up in the hospitals. Sometimes it's actually severe, even dangerous. You know, so life-threatening sometimes, and yes, that's how you know. You can easily trace an allergy.
So
it's easy to trace an allergy.
Great. So what people call food poisoning sometimes could just be an allergy.
Yes. Yes. You're just allergic to it, to that food you've eaten.
Because everyone else eats it, and it's just when they bring the drum to you, you can't dance.
Yes. So it's your immune system that is reacting to it. Don't ask me how you get there. It's just like asking me how you got an autoimmune disorder. You know, people, no doctor, and we don't know where, we can't trace it. Why people come down with autoimmune diseases. Some we can trace, you know, that's a natural medicine. We say it's a leaky gut syndrome, you know, which you tell me to speak English very soon. Okay, so, but yes, I mean, autoimmune diseases cannot be traced.
So you talked about autoimmune diseases now, and a number of people would look at immunotherapy perhaps as some way of reversing this, right?
No. You see, when you have a breakdown in your immune system, then we can talk about immunotherapy. But when you have an autoimmune breakdown, there's nothing we can do. We can't trace it, like I said. But you see, for instance, somebody has, let's talk about COVID. We know that COVID was actually, you know, a symptom of a breakdown in immune system. Yeah, I mean, the reason why natural medicine, though people may not want to admit it, the reason why we were able to treat successfully is because we were able to trace it to the immune system, and we were able to do successful immunotherapy. So yes, you can for diseases like that, you can try immunotherapy, not for autoimmune diseases. But you can't.
I mean, even, you know, every medical practitioner then even told us that, look, in order to protect yourself from COVID, boost your immune system.
Exactly.
So that really,
I mean, that one is simple and straightforward. But autoimmune diseases, you know, require even more more attention.
So what are are there remedies, natural remedies for allergies or intolerances?
Yeah. Keep away from the foods.
Oh.
That's all.
But I love the food.
I'm sorry. Keep away from the foods. Keep away. That's the only remedy. Well, in other fields, in other medical fields, they try to give you certain medications. But you see, my argument is that it's destroying your system. Why continue eating it? It is destroying your system. You know, keep away from it. I have kept away from wheat-based foods for many years now, and I see that, you know, I have a better health condition, and I'm coping. Like I said, the world is taking care of us now. There's so many flours out there that don't contain gluten. We have almond flour, we have coconut flour, we have so many flours, oat flour. You know, I bake biscuits with oat flour, and I get by. I get by. I'm able to eat what other people can eat now. I have a baker who bakes a gluten-free cake for me. So I'm able to eat cake, but I won't come to your party to eat your cake. But I can eat my cake at home.
Okay. Perhaps also to advise, we have just a few. I'd like you to give us some counsel. The first time you were here, which was the first episode, I think, of this lifestyle, you talked about superfoods and talked about things that people can do to help themselves stabilize, boost immune system, and prevent some of these things that we're talking about. If you could reiterate some of those things, what are the things that you would advise that people should prioritize in terms of preventing any of these onslaughts against their bodies?
Okay, we talked about boosting the immune system. When you have a good immune system, and when you have, when your body is less acidic, of course, you don't encourage diseases. So, what are the foods that help to boost your immune system? We have fruits and vegetables, of course. Eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, 7 servings a day. People say 5 servings, but we've raised the bar. We say 7 servings. So I take a lot of herbal teas. Herbal teas are good. It helps to boost your immune system, like green tea. Occasionally, I take the oregano tea to cleanse my body. Help your liver by taking dandelion tea. Eat a lot of greens. It's very important. And eat less animal foods. In this part of the world, I see how people just load their plates with animal foods. Wow. It's like a sign of, yes, I have arrived.
Yes, you know,
Yes.
the big size, the big turkey, big chicken, big meat.
That's why we have a lot of big men and women visiting us. It's not a good sign of, eating healthy is a sign of affluence, I must say.
But speaking of meat, there are those who talk about lean meat, white meat, and all those things. What do all those mean? How does it affect anything?
Okay, lean meat is very good because it has the vitamin B12, vitamin Bs generally, but a lot of vitamin B12, which is required for your body to grow and to prevent diseases. Now, some people stay away from meat, and I'm like, who asked you to stay away from meat? Do you have a heart problem? Do you? This is what the doctor told me. Well, I don't know. Is your doctor a nutritionist? Okay. Why would he tell you to stay away from meat?
When you talk about meat, what kind of meat are we talking about?
Lean meat. I'm talking about lean meat.
Describe lean meat.
Lean meat is doesn't have any fat in it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it doesn't have any fat in it. So you cut off all the fat in your meat, and then you can eat it. You can eat it safely.
Okay, so when the doctors, as you say now, say that people should not take red meat or lean meat or whatever they get. I've heard about red meat as well. Please describe, what does all that mean? Don't eat meat so that you don't have cancer and all those things. I think that's something else.
I should ask you.
No,
Meanwhile, we say eat your meat, eat it safely, eat the lean meat so that you can prevent cancer.
But then, so where did all that come from? There's those who say, it came from what doctors tell people.
All right, it came from, you know how they rear cows. I always talk about this. You know how they rear their cows abroad. They confine them to a field and they give them food that mutates their DNA. Oh. But we don't really get that here in Nigeria. Our cows are allowed to graze, so they eat the good food, and so our meat is safe to eat.
Okay. So we can eat meat here?
Yes, I said that.
Irrespective of any...
Yes, please eat meat.
Okay.
Eat meat.
Okay.
Eat it reasonably.
Okay. How about young people? Anything specifically or special that they should be considering as they grow old?
Yes, they should consider staying off fast foods. They should, because fast foods, yes. Because fast foods, like I say, most of them contain gluten because they are wheat-based. They are wheat-based. So many times I'm hungry and I want to jump into your regular fast food restaurant. I always have to ask for rice because I can't eat the pastries. And most of them can't tolerate the pastries, but they are eating it. They don't even know because they are not gut sensitive to it. And also fast foods contain a lot of preservatives and food colorings, and that is not good to the body system.
What does it do?
It poisons your body system up. It's like MSG, which I talked about the last time. So you want to stay away from it as much as possible.
So how are we going to have fun? I mean, we don't eat, these pastries are not food. We just want to enjoy,
I don't know how to answer that question, but I have fun. I have fun. I'm not about to put the restaurants out of business, but I'm just saying that they should be mindful and use less preservatives. I once had a cook come over to cook for me, and I don't know, she put a lot of MSG in my food because it was a party. I was cooking for all, and I said to her, cook some food for me to keep at home. And when I went back to the food, I realized that I couldn't even eat it because it was loaded with MSG. So they can use less of it or none at all. It's possible, so that we don't have issues.
Okay. There's just one other issue among several others that we may not be able to talk about today. There are those who believe that, they can detoxify. And if they detoxify, doesn't it take away all these things you talk about that will eat and then will detoxify to take away the toxins from the body?
Okay, if you can target it in a way that you detoxify before it damages your organs, because the detoxification is not going to help you when your organs are damaged already.
Did you plan to be nice today? Just because all the things is like you guys should just stay in your kitchens and don't go out. We have to eat. Farm to table is very expensive. Don't you think so?
No, I don't think so.
There are those who wonder, look, these foods that you're recommending, farm to table, it's very good, but it's very expensive. What do you say to them?
Well, it depends on what your preferences are. Do you know I can make a meal out of corn? Just boiled corn. And there's this fruit that they call pear. Yes. I can make a meal out of it. That's a meal. How much is that? Is that expensive? How much is yam compared to all the fast foods that you get out there? So it's cheaper, even in this part of the world, for you to cut up your yam and then eat it at home than go to the fast foods restaurants to eat.
Essentially, all of these are supposed to help us prevent diseases, especially diseases like cancer. You mentioned that the other time. You still say
diabetes and high blood pressure, because if you're in the habit of eating out, you can control the kind of salt and the amount of salt that you ingest. So, and that affects people with high blood pressure.
Okay, I have to say that we have taken some lessons today, and I'm expecting reactions, no doubt. For now, I have to thank you again for being here. Don't worry, we'll hopefully be able to bring you in from time to time to come and bust our bubbles and change our lifestyles. Dr. Bisola Kadiku, naturopath and Doctor of Natural Science, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. We'll return after now, and it's time for the home stretch. Do stay with us. Okay, that fellow is here. Aswelime Oji Eniola, creative director of Oji's Media, and is director of photography, producer, editor, post-producer, technical and content director, and also a media consultant. Thank you for joining us this morning.
You're welcome, sir.
Just so you know, he's one of those people who don't like coming in front of the camera. So when you see him, just like my director right now, they don't like coming in front of the camera, but they can put you in front of the camera, whether you want to be in front of the camera or not. So thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
Your job is to make stars. You don't like showing up.
Exactly, we don't. We don't.
Why?
Somehow you just feel that's not what you're out for. So it's just to stay behind the cameras and then do your stuff and then make these people. So even some celebrities will call, they say, you are the celebrity makers. And we say, well, but
exactly.
we like it back there.
So some of us who have the power, so to speak, to drag you and put you in front of the camera that you've always put other people. How does it make you feel? Hate me, it's okay. It's okay.
No, I can't.
No, it's okay.
I can't, but I guess maybe it's just, this happens very, 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 doesn't happen often. Mm-hmm. So once in a while, and then sometimes if we can shy away from some, we just shy away. And
only if you can, but not with some. But tell us about your industry. I mean, you have moved from just being a mere camera operator or just a graphics maker or an editor into the governor over all of them, so to speak. Tell us about your journey.
Okay, so my journey started about 23 years ago. I came into the video production world as a camera person. You learn how to operate the camera. We started from the having to film the naming ceremonies and all of those things, all of those kind of social events. We get like 150 naira 17 naira, 18 naira, max 150 naira.
That was a lot of money then.
But yeah, exactly. But we kept up it, and then from there I moved on to going to learn proper, and then going to studios and then getting to know exactly how it feels. Then at that point, I felt like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then in the last 23 years, I've not done any other kind of business. I've not done any kind of career. This has been the only thing I've been doing in the last 23 years. So I've moved from that person who goes from doing naming ceremonies to making, being in charge of something like a reality show, for instance, who feeds over 200 million people all over the world. So I sit on the console and I decide what over 200 million people, over what 240 million people see at a time.
Which one of these is this?
The Big Brother Naija show.
Oh, really? So you're one of the culprits. Okay.
So
you will tell us today all the things that you don't show us.
There's always a stream too, so it's fine. So from there, they moved into start making movies and then making blockbuster movies. And then some little time make some smaller ones, but a lot of people now tell me to be like someone who makes movies that all the stars have to be there, blah blah, and all of that. So it's been a journey, and then but the last 23 years has been really, really fantastic for me.
Okay, but you have touched almost every sector in the industry. What necessitated that move? You were just a camera operator, and then you also edited.
Absolutely.
Then naturally, editing would require you doing some graphics.
Absolutely.
So you also do graphics. So tell us what necessitated the move into all this.
Okay, so when I got started and I told myself, okay, this is what I want to do. So the best thing that could work for me at that point was, okay, so what are the things that is being done in this industry? So I sat down, I looked at it, and I looked at all the sectors of video production, anything that has to do with video production, visual production generally. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is my plan. I'm going to touch every area. So I decided. I decided. So it was deliberate. It was something I deliberately wanted to do because I knew I wasn't going to do any other thing apart from what I'm doing. So I looked into all the sectors of the video production industry, and I started from this to that, to doing events, to doing corporate videos, doing musical videos, doing musical concerts that won award on YouTube as highest viewed musical video, directed stuff like that. And I mean, so I started moving from all of that. So today...
Which one is this video that is highest viewed? Look, let us know the people to shoot when we see them.
Okay, so I directed the video for my friend and my brother, Tim Godfrey, Nara. Nara, at that time when we dropped it, he was the highest viewed video on YouTube for about 2 weeks globally.
So that's the one with
Travis Green.
Travis Green, really?
Yes. So
was it shot in Lagos, was it?
It was shot in Lagos. We shot it at House on the Rock, yeah.
Whoa.
So that was shortly after I came back from South Africa. So we met, I and Tim Godfrey, we've been friends for like 2005. So we met again in South Africa, and he said, okay, Uji, I'm having this concert, so I want you to come and sit on it. We've done it before, let's do something this. And so I came into Nigeria straight forward. We started rehearsals and all of that, and boom, we had that Fearless concert, and it came out well. Then the next one, we had Toy, the next song after that, a year or two, another one he did called Toya. Toya is a Toya. So I still directed that one, and it also went viral worldwide as well. So it's just me calculating movement, and then at the same time, I'm also planning my exit.
Oh,
so
don't exit yet. Just before you get to the exit part of the conversation, how do you now become? Okay, perhaps to ask it this way. So there are technical directors, there are line producers, there are series producers, there is a producer, and then there are directors. What are those? How do they differ? How do the assignments differ? You're also, part of your CV says you've also been a director of photography. What do all those things mean to us? How do they play out in the videos we watch?
Okay, they mean different things. It's just like getting into a bank. You see the bank. There's a bank MD, there's a CEO, there's a chairman, board of trustee. There's the branch manager. Then so you that breaking it down. So it's the same thing in the production world where you have the line producer is different from what a producer or a series producer is if it's a reality show or something that has to do with multiple production like
so we
that.
have to go to school for all of that one, right?
So yeah, ideally, so it's something you must know, so you know where to play.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the industry. I mean, you've traversed quite a bit from what you have told us so far. What are some of the things that we should develop on to make us, because we've been feeding the world already. Nollywood is said to be one of the fastest growing in the world. What are the things that we're missing?
Okay, so Nollywood right now we are number 3 in the world after Hollywood and Bollywood. It's Nollywood, and in fact most parts of some Northern American parts we are dominating even beyond the Hollywood there. So what we should do is for firstly to know that this is actually a tool to tell our own story, to change that name, that narrative about Nigeria and Nigerians. Nollywood is one of the best ways to work on this. In fact, the entertainment industry generally, which we have the music, you have all those guys doing that already, and then our movies, you will be shocked at how much people know our actors, how much people will tell you, oh, this person acted this and acted this, and they are not Nigerians. Some of them are not even Africans. So that's how much we are presently getting into. But I think the government does not even see anything cool about this, because if it were, they should by now be really, really looking into this industry and then making things right. Rather, the experience has not been easy.
Well, the federal government recently set up that team, I think led by Alibaba at some point. You know, that's another conversation altogether. But is there a role for the associations? One of the associations you belong to is that of the DGN?
Yeah, the DGN, Directors Guild of Nigeria. Then there's an AMP, Association of Movie Producers. There's a Nollywood Creative Forum. There's a lot of forums. Yeah.
So is there a way that, you know, a collaboration of them can come together and speak for the industry so that the world can know?
Well, I can't really say I know exactly what the issue is as regards that, because sometimes when we have meetings, we talk about these things. We still have one recently at a hotel, even on the issue of copyrights and all of that, just recently about 2 months ago. And then, but I don't know exactly if it is that the government, I think the government is just not seeing it. They don't believe in it. They don't think it makes sense to look directly into that direction and then make things happen. So, and then that's also the reason why some of us that our movies get into the cinemas, most times we don't come back smiling, even though people see big numbers and all of that. But a lot of us, we know how they cut us off, how they basically like ripping us off, because we don't get anything from them. But yet, when our movies get into the cinemas, we are getting this tax, federal, the states, the different level of taxation. You discover that about 35% of your income or 40% of your income from the cinemas is gone to the government. So what do we get in return? Nothing.
So government is overtaxing you guys?
Absolutely. Multiple level of taxation.
Okay, anyway, one other issue that I have to take you on is this controversy, latest controversy about Anikulapo not getting validated for the
Oscars.
The Oscars.
Yeah.
How does that come across to you? According to him, all standards were met. So same goes for the King of Thieves. So a number of other movies like that of Nigerian descent and perhaps also of African descent. So is there something, and I understand that a good number of the people behind these things are Nigerians.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Majorly, they are Nigerians, but what we should also know is that I think that the people in this community know exactly what they're looking for. So you see Anikula, I saw it. It was nice. It was beautiful.
Extremely.
It was
I
really,
don't
really,
praise films all the time.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
me.
It was beautiful, but if you technically look into it, sometimes you see some one or two things, and then maybe the people on that table are those kind of people that are looking like, okay, they just don't want to see the good alone. They want to see the bad, and then with the bad, they want to judge if it's cool or not. But they've forgotten that we are just getting into this space, and then we are getting into the global space as well. So the Oscars necessarily, the movies on the Oscars necessarily does not mean that they have done better than the ones we have here. I love Anikulapo. I love King of Thieves a lot. And I respect the producers, the directors, the production team generally. But I think that we can always get better, actually. But I'm not of the support to say it's not good enough to be nominated for Oscars. I don't think so.
At least nominate it.
Exactly.
Well, let me just say that this is one of several visits that you will do here. I have enough power and influence to drag you here anytime I want. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Uji Eniola is a movie maker, producer, director, media consultant, and so many other things that you might find on his profile on Instagram. Thank you again for being here this morning.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you for having me.
And with that, we have come to the end of Sunrise this morning. Thank you for allowing us be a part of your day so far, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye for now.
So, because I am